Today, I want to introduce Christian Ward. He's a Chief Data Officer at Yext. And without building up too much of him, I will say that last year his session was one of the best we produced. It was really, really good. So my expectation level of you, sir, is quite high today. So for today's talk, he's going to be discussing the 3 impacts of AI that will last and how to succeed with each. So why don't we start off today with a good round of applause for Christian Ward.
Thank you, sir.
Go get him.
Good morning. I hope you all have your breakfast. You're ready for a little discussion. As with all discussions at this point, I feel like they're about AI. Like I literally can't talk to my 9-year-old without him wanting to have a conversation on how he could use ChatGPT. So we're going to discuss the 3 impacts of AI and how to succeed with them. And the reason why I focus on this is I think you can already start to feel there was the hype cycle. And everything was AI, and now it's starting to cool a little bit, that downward trowel of disillusionment, as they call it. And the important thing is not that it's not working, it's how do we leverage it so that we can actually use it in all of our marketing efforts and all of our hope to gain influence over search algorithms, as well as information coming from AI in search. And so I'm going to start with Amara's law. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this law. It dates all the way back to 1960. But Roy Amara wrote that we tend to overestimate the impact of a technology in the short run, and we underestimate its impact in the long run. And that's definitely happening right now, which is there's so much hype about what it could do, but the reality is we're probably underestimating what it's going to do over the next 5 to 10 years. For example, how many of you in the next 5 years expect to talk less to computers? Yeah, we're all going to be talking to computers as the main form of interaction. It's going to change every UX, every engagement. You're literally going to go from your fingertips to the tip of your tongue. And that is a huge change in how people will shop, engage, and really deal with your brand. So we're going to talk first about decentralization. This is probably the biggest thing you have to think about for the next 2 to 3 years. So search is expanding. It's going to change drastically and rapidly. AI strategies for commerce, we're going to talk about conversational AI. What does it mean to have a conversation with a brand? You're not going to be tracking people the way almost every booth out there is really about tracking in some way, shape, or form. It's about identification of humans. What about humans that actually want to be identified through a dialogue with your brand? That's where you need to focus. And the last is, I'm going to share with you some research that we've produced in the last several months on hundreds of thousands of businesses over a 1-year period to see what is the impact of getting their data correct to inform search engines and AI platforms. So let's start with decentralization. So did anyone see this study? Gartner predicted a 25% decline in all search volume by 2026. You're halfway through 2024, right? So there's 18 months more where you're like, oh my gosh, this is all over. They actually predict a 50% decline in the 2 years following that. So what does that mean to our brands? Every customer journey starts in Google or a centralized search ecosystem right now. In fact, it kind of looks like this. So I'm dating myself, but I grew up with Lycos and Dogpile and AltaVista. Hopefully some of you remember those search engines. They were before Google. They were great. But the reality is Google won. It all centralized at Google, and there's obviously a lot of regulatory questions about how that happens and how Google controls that journey. But what's starting to happen is it's starting to move out of centralized search. That is a massive change for everyone in this room, myself included, which is Google used to be everything I had to focus on. But what happens now when I'm driving in my car and I hook ChatGPT up to the Bluetooth and I have full-blown conversations with it? Do you know BMW and Mercedes now have ChatGPT in every new vehicle? Well, that changes drastically. No one's going to open their phone while driving anymore. They shouldn't have done it to begin with, but the reality is you shouldn't be driving and looking at it, but now they're just going to talk. As they speak, what does that mean and what do each of these platforms provide? See, as much as you all are into data and information, and we all say we're data-driven, you don't have an AI strategy. You're not going to be one of these companies, right? What you need is a data strategy to ensure that the AI understands what your brand has to offer and how to interact with it. So there was a big sort of explosion of articles about Google losing market share. That came off that Gartner report. And I was looking at this, they redid the data and said, well, it's not as bad as we thought. But actually, If you look at desktop search, like how many of you use AI on your mobile phone? Just anyone? Actually, that's a lot. So most people, it's also because you're all geeks like me, most people do not do that. They use AI on their desktop. They're still experimenting with ChatGPT in a big browser, right? They're not really fully on their phone with it. But this is, if you look at the month Google launched Search Generative Experience in their labs, it has been a steady decline of 6.7% in search volume at Google. It's funny, I think by them allowing AI overviews, they're now called, using those, it kind of signaled to the whole market, you should be trying this AI stuff. And what did that do? It's taking search traffic away from Google. So decentralization isn't necessarily just Bing or OpenAI. It's this concept that, what if I don't use Google anymore? What if I move on to another area and I start having AI conversations? Remember, in search makes the most money when they get you close to an answer, but don't give you the answer. If I get you close to the answer, how many of you, when you type something into Google and you don't get what you're looking for, pick up the phone and call Google and go, hey, your search engine's not working? Yeah, no one does that. You think you did something wrong. You didn't. The whole model is to get you close, not to actually answer the question. If they answer the question, you won't click on any ads close to the answer. That's the problem with their model. And they know this. It's an innovator's dilemma. So Google rolled out AI overviews a little while back. And this is kind of the hysteria that everyone had with rich featured snippets. Do you remember that? 0 click. Everyone's like, oh my God, they're taking the answer from my website. No one's going to come to my website. That's true. And that's going to continue, actually. That's going to get worse. So how do we prepare for this? Obviously, AI overviews have been pulled back a little bit since I posted this article. But the reality is OpenAI is training GPT-5. They've been very honest. They launched 4.0, but they're training 5. Even though people are worried about it, 5 is going to blow people's minds. They think 3 to 4, I don't know if anyone played with GPT-3, but moving from 3 to 4 was an incredible jump. Sam Altman says moving from 4 to 5 will be an equal-sized jump. That's insane. Look, 4 is already better than any intern you could hire, right? It's quite good. But 5, if it's that much better, you're talking about a senior executive level intelligence on any topic in the world. Now, Google updated their algorithm. In addition to this, I'm sure, have all of you heard about the Google Documents leak around search? It was about, they leaked thousands of pages of code. If you haven't seen that yet, please look that up. Google's search algorithm, a lot of the information, and Google has confirmed it's real, a lot of the factors that affect search are in this document. There's over 14,000 factors that have been identified so far in Google's search algorithm. It doesn't give you the weights, but Google changing their algorithm and putting AI overviews, they fundamentally know if they lose the customer journey, they're going to lose everything. Now, think of that, what that means for your brand. Right now, you produce content, you feed data to Google, and you hope to show up organically and with ads. I will offer to all of you, you've never seen Google angry before. You have seen Google with their stock going up and their revenue for decades. You've never lived in a world where you call Google and say, hey, you're taking all my information and you're using it. They don't care. This is their entire business model. And Google's a huge partner of ours. I love it. It's probably the best technology that we've ever seen to this point. But if they're going to change their model, we have to change as well. Apple, as you know, they showed Apple Intelligence. This was an article taken from just before their WWDC this last week. They're showing how now you can talk to your phone and it understands things in your calendar, your various applications. Well, if I can go from application to application, do you realize what we're talking about? There was this thing of copilots. Copilots are going to be everywhere. You're going to have a copilot. I'll have a copilot. Everyone else go. No, Apple's already showing there's going to be a copilot of copilots. So now I can just talk to my machine and say, hey, can you go last month's Google Analytics, pull down all the data, and then merge it with my buyer data, and then put it into charts and graphs, and format it for the executive team for my meeting next week? That's 4 different applications, and all you're doing is speaking to it. Everyone, you're gonna be living in a world of efficiency that you've only dreamed of. So this is moving fast. In fact, I was joking, Alan, that I sent in these slides 2 weeks ago, and I already feel like they're out of date. The reality is it's moving so quickly. And GPT 4.0, if you haven't tried this, how many people here pay for the premium version of GPT? Yeah, what about Gemini? Please look around. Is that not bonkers? None of you pay for Google's premium version of this. Do you understand how big of a change that is? If that doesn't show you decentralization, I don't know what does. You're literally paying an upstart that's been around for a couple years for their AI, but not Google. So I'll show you, I pay for both, and I'll show you later the differences. So we know GPT-5 is coming. That's going to be a massive change. And something I want to point out to you, if you're familiar, there's such great information in academic research. And there's literally thousands of papers now produced about academic studies of AI. But I'm going to go old school here. This is the most cited academic theory of why we as humans adopt technology. It's called the technology acceptance model. It was written by Fred Davis as his dissertation way back in 1989. And it basically says there's lots of reasons on the left why you might want to adopt a technology. I'm going to ignore those. But these two boxes, you basically adopt technology based on how valuable you perceive it to be and how easy it is to use. So this is why we have toasters that are really easy to use but are kind of terrible. And then we have toasters, there's a market for toasters that are really hard to use. But if you wanted to, they can do anything you want. That's why there's markets for these things. Really advanced cameras, really simple cameras, right? Because the cognitive burden of learning a technology is often what keeps you from adopting it. Now, what happens to the bottom box if I can just speak to the toaster? If I can talk to the toaster and it can tell me exactly how to use it, there is no cognitive burden. What I want you to understand is every academic paper that I read, I'm in school, I'm getting a doctorate, I read a ton of these. Every paper I read references this model. This model is about to break. Because if you can talk to technology, for example, how many people here are Google phone owners, like Google Android? Not too many? What about iPhone? Other side? Okay. The reason you don't switch from one to the other is there's a cognitive burden. You don't want to learn the Android operating system, or you don't want to learn the Apple system. That's this model. But what if you could just talk to it? What if you could just say, hey, can you just set this up like I had on my Apple phone? Great. If you can do that, you'll adopt it. And that's about to change for everything, not just search. It's not really about us adopting this technology. The technology is adopting us. Again, my kids walk around and they speak naturally to computers. But what's happening is, like, I grew up and my teenagers grew up, that we walk around like shoes, near me, size 9. That's ridiculous. You're changing the way you think to make it work in a Google search keyword-based world. You're just going to start having conversations. What does that mean to your customer's journey? So, what's the strategy for commerce? I would say, as Google rolls out these AI overviews, there's a lot unraveling sort of how we engage. So Google's not providing any of us with metrics on whether they showed you in an AI overview or not. So people are running experiments like they do with keywords, but it's not valid data. Any study you're looking at today where they're like, oh, this works, it doesn't. It's too early for anyone to make those claims. Now, when they were using this as SGE, so this was before it became AI overviews, they only opened it up in labs. I don't know if many of you enabled it. I did, so I wanted to see how much it used AI instead of normal search results. Well, someone did a study on this. They put thousands of search queries across all industries into Google in their lab section, and the AI came back with an answer 86% of the time. Now, that's an interesting metric. You know what's really scary about the metric? The inverse. That means only 13.2% of the time did Google's own system say, you know what, just show them the old search results. They don't really want the answer. Let's just show them results. That's crazy. That means their own AI has determined that 86% of the time you want an answer. You don't want the SERP, the classic search engine results page. So, where do these large language models get their data? What I'll show you is this on the left. I call this dueling banjos. On the left is Gemini. So I'm actually paying them $20 a month just so I can show you fine people what it does, since no one's paying for it. On the right is OpenAI's GPT-4o. It's the current model. And so I asked them, like, can you tell me if there's an Allstate insurance rep in Boca Raton? And it comes back, and I actually live in Boca Raton. I always use local data that I know well. But we power at Yext all of the data online for Allstate. They're one of our big clients, and we power for a couple million businesses, all of their data that's online. Well, this is all accurate information. But what you can see is on the left you have a list of insurance providers, and on the right, it's slightly differently formatted. But this is Google versus OpenAI. Now, I asked it, where did you get that data? You should be doing this with your brand. If you're not, please do this. You say, where do you get that data? Say be concise, because it'll go on if you don't know for about 6 minutes. So say be concise. What it comes back with is it says, I found that from Allstate's agent locator tool on Gemini's side. And on the right side, it actually gives you citations, but it says their official website. What does that mean? It means the AI is using your brand's website to pull in structured information and to present it in a question or a dialogue with a consumer. Now, I asked it, what time does one of those agents' offices open? And it actually comes back and it starts to cite different areas. So one says allstate.com, and the other, GBT, has 2 citations, right? Like in academic research, it says this is where I found it. So it says Bill Anderson opens at 8:30 a.m. I click on the citations on the right side with ChatGPT, and it comes back and it shows me yp.com. When was the last time anyone was on yp.com? I know it's huge these days, but no takers? Why is it using yp.com? You click the second citation and it takes you to local mint, big local mint user base here. No, I've never even heard of localmint.com. And I've been in this business a very long time. What is it doing? It's analyzing the relationship, just like Google search analyzes the relationship, which is if I can look at 30 places online and Bill Anderson opens at 8:30 on all 30 of them, how confident am I as a search engine or an AI that Bill opens at 8:30? Pretty confident. Now, if you ask Google that question, because they're Google, they don't like to share how they rank things or why they have their data. What's really funny is I figured out a trick. After 3 hours of beating on this thing, I realized, oh, what if you lie to it? So I lied to the AI and I say, I am Bill Anderson. I own that agency. You're wrong. I open at 8 or whatever it is. You can do this with your own brand. Go in and analyze it, and it literally will tell you exactly how to fix the data, which is number 1, fix your website. It's basically saying on the left, I'm on Google. On the left, it goes, fix your website, update it. Great, what else? It says, claim your Google business listing. No shit, great. I've got to update that data. But what's the other one? Update online directories. Now, a lot of our competition in this world at Yext talks about you just have to do Google and Facebook. No, you don't. That's SEO people talking. And if you're an SEO, no offense, it's not science, it's religion. It's not physics if God can wake up in the morning and change the way the physics works, right? And that's Google. So in this case, all you can do is analyze what they're saying. So Google literally says update directories. I said, well, which directories? It goes Yelp, Bing, Apple, Foursquare, more. I just asked you for more. Super Pages. How many of you guys are Super Pages users? Yeah, not many, huh? But the AI and these data systems, all data scientists look at observations. There's no scientist among us that walks around and goes, 2 observations? Great, we're good. We're done. Our work here is done. That's not how it works. We look at all of the data, and if we see that your brand has perfect data, we are more confident in showing that. That means everything matches everywhere I look, on your website and on all of these other sources. Now, this is tough. Yext has been in this business for 15 years. It's constantly changing and augmenting. But this is a strategy that even the AI admits works. I have another example. I'll just rifle through it. Here's a Wendy's. We power everything for Wendy's as well. When you click on OpenAI citation, it takes you to the page that we power for Wendy's. And this page, by the way, the point of these pages is not for the user. This is about technical SEO, structured data. So we spoon feed Google search algorithm all of the data about every Wendy's, both on pages, but then on also DoorDash and every other site that these AI systems are using, as well as search is using, to show up. Is this making sense? It's really just about, like, I don't live here anymore. I used to. And if I came back to New York and I asked all of you people, hey, what's the best slice I could get within, near the hotel? If all of you said the exact same place, Goodfellas Pizzeria, it's 2 blocks away, it's over here, it's open at 8 a.m., how confident would I be in Goodfellas Pizzeria? Really confident. But if all of you have different data for Goodfellas or don't use Goodfellas, then I wouldn't be as confident. It's just data. It's just math. That's how AI works as well. So, again, it's the same thing. Here at reference like Manta, Zomato, local.com, these are all sites that the AI is freely telling us you should make sure your data is correct there. So, AI and search are built with very similar data strategies because they're built by the same data scientists, right? So the most consistent and frequency of signal is what wins. And you have to be thinking about this when it comes to search and AI. Because remember, you're all building your own AI chat, and that's awesome. But the reality is, just like with search, people are going to start to have their own version of this. You will all have your own R2-D2 or C3PO, and you're not going to go and sit on my website to chat with me. That R2-D2 is going to talk to your brand's AI and go back and forth. Apple proved that yesterday, or 2 days ago at WWDC. So why am I showing all this? Well, there's something going on, and you may be familiar with this, called grounding. Grounding is the new part of large language model research, where what they're saying to the large language model is don't read their whole website and answer the question. This is for objective knowledge, like objective facts. What it's saying is I don't want the AI to look at your website because your website, to all of you, it's just a bag of words. It's a bag of words that the AI is statistically recombining to answer questions. You don't want to do that. What you want to do is say, actually, for objective questions like what time we open and do we have this product and do we offer this service and do we have chocolate shakes, that sort of question, that's an objective question. And you want it to go to a knowledge graph, and that's what all this research shows, is they're hooking up knowledge graphs, highly structured information, and saying, and this I'm just showing you just research articles. If you look up graph, or knowledge graph and large language models, you will see all of this stuff. This is why, I don't know if you all remember the term hallucinations? Hallucinations happen because when you give a large language model lots of language, a bag of words, it recombines them in a way that are not necessarily accurate. But if you actually stop it, you ground it in sense of electricity. If you ground it with objective questions, then it goes, oh, actually, I'm not allowed to make up anything. I have to go check this knowledge graph, and I only answer exactly what it says. That's why GPT-4 and 4.0 is actually starting to get much smarter and not making things up. It's based on grounding. Now, why do I say that? Because you should really be thinking about knowledge graphs. You should be thinking about structuring your knowledge as much as you can. Now, at Yext, we've been built on a knowledge graph for about 4 or 5 years. And it's not an easy process, but just think of it as it's a 3-dimensional representation in data of everything about your business. So if you're a hospital system, there's a doctor entity, there's services they provide, there's insurance they take, and there's locations they provide that service. It's a graph structure. So if you change anything, it updates the entire system and the understanding instantaneously. And that is the best way to manage the knowledge that you want customers to access through AI or search. So let's talk about digital presence and impact. I showed you a little of this when I was showing the dueling banjos of how they get their data. But at Yext, since we power a couple million businesses, we can actually look at the data and do an analysis on it. And we did this over the last couple months, where we basically did a study to understand what are the factors that matter in search. I say search, but really AI is standing on the shoulders of search. It's not a new science. It's basically, hey, if those algorithms work, that's probably how you should respond with AI. What's working? And you always look at things, and the craft story is in all data science. These aren't, by the way, this isn't like stuff I'm coming up with. Like, this is very well known. This is what we focus on, which is how consistent is the data? How recent is it, right? What's the accuracy level? How frequent is it updated? And that all kind of culminates in trustworthiness. How much can I trust the data? Now, AI, remember I showed you the technology acceptance model, and I said if you can talk to it, there's no cognitive burden. If you ask a question of GPT-5 and it gets it wrong, like, hey, what time's the laundromat open? You're not going to blame it. You're just going to switch. There's no switching costs with AI. You literally can just go, I'll use this one then. So if that happens, do you all remember when Apple launched their maps and it was like really bad, the data was wrong? Like a couple people almost died. It like led them out to the desert in Australia. Look it up, it's historic. Literally, their data was so bad, people were like, I'm never gonna use it. You know, they're only now recovering from that. It took them almost a decade for people to retry Apple Maps because the data was wrong. That's gonna happen with AI. Because the switching cost, I'm not using GPT. It doesn't even know when the laundromat opens. This is terrible. So AI is going to have a very big trust problem. The only way they're going to solve that is with this approach. So we looked at not surveys of experts or opinions. We actually took an analysis And the way at Yext, if you're not familiar with Yext, people put data into our knowledge graph. They store all of their customer, not their customer data, the data in the customer journey. So what products they have, where their stores are, what services they offer, all that, any structured knowledge. They put it in our system and we synchronize it to hundreds of platforms. So you see here Apple and TripAdvisor, Bing, Instagram. But a lot of our clients go, I just care about Google. And I'm like, that's adorable. But Google cares about all these other sites. I have to do all of it. If you don't do all of it, you won't get that strong signal because we know the AI and search are checking it. So we did a study that said, what is the effect of getting your data correct and perfectly synchronized over 1 year on all of these rest of network sites on Google results? We should be able to see an interaction. So we call this Ron. And I love Ron. Ron's a good friend, but people sort of forget about him. But Ron's really important. And so what I'm going to show you is some charts. Now, I've run all the regressions. This is 720,000 business locations. Every dot on the chart I'm about to show you is a business location or a business entity. When we look at it, we said, well, how many Google clicks to your website do you get? And we did it on all the factors. So clicks to call, clicks to directions, whatever. They all say the same thing. But this chart is going to show clicks to your website. Because for most brands, I'm not trying to sell on Google. I'm trying to get you to my website. Like, that's where I take over as a marketer. Well, and then what percentage synchronized are you on the whole RON? And so we have a lot of clients that don't get fully synchronized. So we actually have this data. So this is a chart of all 721,000. I'll break this down in a second. But what you should immediately see is there's a pattern here, right? So as you move to the right, these businesses are more synchronized than on the left. So, and this is by market. So if I'm in Germany, if you have Germany, it's a different network of programs, but it's percentage. So I know my German companies, if they're only synchronized on half, and there's only 50 publishers or platforms in Germany, that's all accounted for here. Now, if you look at this, and you break it into bins, you could say, well, what if I only do like a few of these platforms? That would be on the left. We have 50 to 75% and then 75% plus. And we averaged, what does it look like for each business? These are the numbers. There is a 278% increase in the number of clicks to websites that synchronize all of this data. Why? Because that's what data science is looking for. They're looking for your data on anything. So if you have an offer, you have a new store, you have a new product, the trick in organic is to make sure every platform knows that as fast as you can, perfectly synchronizing it. The trouble is doing that requires real-time API access. Now again, you don't have to use Yext to do this, but you need to understand that search and AI are based on a trust factor that has to do with consistency of data across platforms. So now I want to point something out. I don't know if there are any financial services businesses here, probably less likely, but if you look down here on the right, there are people doing this right that are not getting a ton of clicks, and that's by the industry they're in. So I'm going to break this down by industry. But the big thing I want to show you is there is literally nothing happening to the top left. What does that mean? It means in every industry, every market cap, if you don't take this approach with AI and search, you're not going to get the engagement that you want. So this is enterprise. Many of you are enterprise brands. So for us, this is what we classify as enterprise, very large businesses. Same pattern. This is mid-market for smaller brands out there, right? Same pattern. Small business blows my mind. It's actually the biggest. Small business, it's kind of like, if you don't do this, you are basically going to lose to enterprise and mid-market. Now, financial services, same chart. Healthcare, same chart. Hospitality is kind of funny. The reason why you see these spikes in the middle with hospitality is because in Europe, TripAdvisor, I don't know if you all know, TripAdvisor is like the Google of Europe for hospitality. Like, they crush. So if you just do TripAdvisor, you can still do quite well, but you still get the most engagement on the far right, where you synchronize all of the data. This is probably the one you care about. See the pattern? So, what's interesting about those charts is that's just the traffic from Google. What you don't realize is it doesn't take any into account the traffic from Ron, the rest of the network. And you want to be thinking about, because at Yext, our mission now is not just getting on those platforms, it's getting into ChatGPT and getting into Gemini. Now, I already get both of those because I power Bing and I also power Google. So if I power Bing and Google, guess where ChatGPT gets their search data from? Bing. So I've got both. But all these other AI platforms, IBM, Amazon, we're doing deals with all of them to make sure your data, or our clients' data, is actually in those systems. And it's consistent so that the AI will surface it no matter where it is. But we did do an analysis of this, which is if you just look at Ron, not Google, on all of the engagements from our customers, we actually see a median of 17% across all industries. I will offer there are some industries where this doesn't work. I would say PubSec, so public sector, people don't search the same way when they're talking to their government than they do when they're looking for shoes. If you think about any time you like pandemic when you're looking for information, you don't search the same way. And then B2B like manufacturing, like cement. People don't look for cement the same way they look for shoes. It's just a very different study. So we're going to come out with more research in the next few months that are also looking at factors like the frequency of updates. Now, a lot of people think that updating data for search and for AI, you got to be careful with that. And they're actually accurate. If you update data and you're not getting it all correct everywhere at the same time, it creates an imbalance. It's what we call noise in signal processing. So if I update that guy, the insurance agent, is opening at 8 a.m., but I only do it in a few places, now it says 8:30 and 8. And so the AI and search go, I'm not going to even show that guy. I'm going to show the person where it's all the same. That's how they think. But if you can do it everywhere, it's worth it. The initial results that I'm seeing is that frequency of updates could be even more important than consistency. They're about equal. What that means is you should be updating your data. And you can use AI to do this. So you can use AI in our system, but any system, to say, I'm going to rewrite this product description. I'm going to rewrite what our store has, what our brand offers. I'm not saying rewrite your website, but if you have access to these systems and you update Google and Bing and all these and you can rewrite with AI, it's definitely worth it. I already know it's going to say that in the initial research I've been doing, but we are looking at not opinions, we're looking at millions of businesses, and this study's 720,000, so we know this has an effect. So in any sort of geeks out there, these are R-squareds of like 32 and 52%. That's really high. It basically means we can explain the Google behavior with this rest of network study. So digital presence in search and AI is going to continue to be grounded, right? It's all about that grounding, but it's going to be really focused on the consistency of your data, the frequency of your updates, and the accuracy that those systems then ascribe to it. So with that, I believe that's it for me. I appreciate all of your time. Thank you.